Okay. Okay, so what you say, Canon will be used for training purposes. All right, well, welcome everybody to Future Trends in Roadway Construction, the role of innovative technologies. So happy to have you all here, but also I want to thank our panelists that are here and want to tell you a little bit about the companies that we represent. It's not a sales pitch, I promise, it's just a few slides. So first, wanted to introduce you to Datumate. It's Datumate's premier product. It is the easiest to use drone photogrammetry software in the heavy civil construction market. If you are interested to learn a little bit more after this webinar, please scan the QR code and then we can schedule a demo and show you a little more. Next, I have Intero Smart Target. So this is the company that Larry represents. It is the solution for GCPs. So after this webinar, if you want to learn more, of course, you can just you can scan the QR code and then learn a little bit more. And last, well, actually, we have two more, bird's eye aerial drones. So if you need some help with some of your aerial drone needs, please don't hesitate to reach out to John, and I'm sure he can point you in the right direction. And then also this QR code takes you to their site so you can learn a little more. And then last but not least, we also have Sage Presence, which is the company that Troy Parkinson represents, our great moderator. So if you have a shortlist presentation coming up or you just want to polish up your presentation skills, Sage Presence can help you out and do a great job. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our moderator, Troy Parkinson from Sage Presence. Troy.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this exciting webinar panel discussion where we want to jump in and get right to the information right away because it's going to be a jam-packed hour. So again, we want to thank our panelists, Larry, John, and Dallas, who are joining us here today for this presentation. I want to give you a little high-level overview, but first some housekeeping notes. Feel free to drop in any questions in the chat window throughout the process. I'll be monitoring that throughout. We will have an opportunity to answer questions, so either the chat window or the Q&A. I'll be tracking that along the way. We are going to have a series of polls throughout our panel today as well. We would love to know how you're using drones, how you're incorporating them into your workflow, so watch for those polls coming up shortly as well. But a high-level agenda for today's session is really, we're going to talk about the role of drones. We're going to talk about smart targets and precision data collection. We're going to talk about data-driven decision-making. And we're going to talk about the future outlook for drone technology in the heavy civil space. So with that, let's first jump into our role of drones. But we want to do our first poll to get a sense of who's with us and how they're utilizing this technology. So here's our first poll. How are you using drones? How are the drones currently being used on your construction site? So we've got site surveying, progress monitoring, inspections, where you're not using drones yet at all. So we have this open, single choice there in the drone process. So for all of you who are attending, please feel free to plug your comments and thoughts into that. We'll give it a few more seconds here. Chaz, give me a sense of how people are chiming in.
Yeah, so far we've got 22% for site surveying, 33% for progress monitoring, 11% for inspections, and 33% are not using drones yet.
All right, excellent. So for those of you who are coming to this conversation new and fresh, we look forward to providing you some insights. Any final comments there, or we're good on that poll? Let's jump in. I want to first start off with John. With the drone technology that has been revolutionizing surveying and mapping in construction, can you share with us your perspective on the right way to do this? Because I know there are folks that'll just go, I'm going to go buy a drone, I'm going to put this up, and I'm going to get the data I need. What do people need to know if they're getting into this effectively? Oh, you're muted, John.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Yeah, mostly, the advantages are you're going to save time. There's going to be a huge safety advantage, and you're going to get really accurate results. The importance of having either an internal drone programming or you utilizing an external drone service provider is making sure that they're, really an aviation-based department first. Aviation first, data second. With all the new regulations coming out, with all the insurance requirements and all the risk you really want to make sure that your pilots are just that. You're FAA certified, and we want to make sure that everybody's taking this seriously, because obviously national airspace, other large events, flying a drone within 3 miles of a baseball game is prohibited. Knowing the rules like that is going to go a long way with ensuring that you'd have a successful and safe drone program.
Excellent. And with you, Larry, when you take a look at how the technology has impacted the traditional methods of geospatial data collection, are there specific projects that you've seen or been a part of that have had the greatest benefit of this technology?
It's a great question, John. I think if you look at just the proliferation of drones in the industry, we're seeing the needs being met, the demand of the consumer being either the engineer, the surveyor, the developer, or the DOTs, for instance. To get the data faster, the drone meets that need. To get the project data safer, which I really want to echo what John said. The second point he made was safe. Drone collection allows us to do things without having to put people in front of traffic or unnecessary risk, and I think that's really important. If I was looking at the specific types of projects, it's really going to be just about any type of a civil infrastructure where there's going to be shaping of the land. We're going to go in there and learn what's there, collect that data, model it, and then reshape it. So you got to know what the terrain looked like, and then how do you do that? So that's why site surveying on the front end of the poll you asked was so important. But I think progress monitoring falls right in the middle of that. People are going to be doing that every step of the way on the project. And ironically, then you're going to have inspection later on the built project. So drones are showing up everywhere.
And Dallas, how are you seeing this technology impacting your work and how you're helping clients?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of benefit. Safety is huge in construction. And so the ability to get, a very transparent look of what your site looks like on a day-to-day basis, I think the safety impact adds huge ROI to these large projects. And then also there's a lot of activity going on, a lot of material being moved, and there's cost attached to that. So the ability to track your large quantities of material going in or out and your progress, and maybe catch mistakes early instead of later, really helps keep a project on schedule, and hopefully on budget.
Excellent. With this technology comes great opportunities, but there also can be some challenges. I would love to hear from each of you. What are some of the challenges that you have encountered when you incorporate sort of drone capturing data into BIM models, and how do you overcome some of these challenges? And I'll start with you on this one, Larry.
Oh, well, thanks. I appreciate that. So I get to go set the first input on that. Thanks. It plays well to our product, the Smart Target, is that customers a lot of times tell us they have trouble getting their project in the right place in the world. And that's kind of a quick high-level view of that. But we had a conversation with a large firm a while back who's modeling buildings and modeling the insides of the buildings, but they couldn't figure out where they needed to be on the outside, how to get it into the real model. We were fortunate to have a partner working with us at the time who said, "Hey, could we use Smart Targets?" And I said, "Yeah, absolutely." The idea being, you just need to know where it is on the outside, tie that to the model that you build on the inside. So knowing where your project is part of it. I feel like there's a number of other things that if customers just focused on what things do they do today that they would want to streamline. Can we make it go faster? And the technology is going to help you do that. The drone service industry is fantastic at looking at ways to streamline. And I'll stop there and let the other guys jump in.
Yeah, John, what are your thoughts?
Just, integration into current, our idea is we don't want to change the way you're doing things. We want to complement it. Having, pictures is one thing, but being able to integrate 3D models into BIM models, being able to, really kind of enhance, the way people are currently doing things, and being able to take them into the future, as we are seeing things are changing very quickly.
Absolutely. Any thoughts you'd like to add to that, Dallas, in terms of the challenges or anything people are facing as they move into this technology?
Yeah, so I've always looked at a drone as like a tool in your toolbox. And so some projects they're good, some projects maybe not. There's different different times where they're good. And also with that, there's different types of drones. So it starts with, selecting the right hardware. Like, do you guys need LiDAR? Do you guys just need photogrammetry? So I think just picking the right hardware and doing your own research and development, because every company is a little different and will have different needs. Yeah, and there is lots of challenges. There's a lot of data, drone data, LiDAR data. You're talking gigabytes, terabytes of data. So just coming up with good procedures to store, manage, and file away that data. And then, yeah, the accuracy and alignment is very important. I mean, if you're not collecting good, accurate data, that's where the smart targets help, then it's not beneficial to your BIM modeling. And then just like what John said, just integrating into your existing workflow. There to complement, not make it more difficult.
Most definitely. Well, that's a great segue into the next section of our conversation, which is all about the smart targets and the precision data collection. This is also a place where we'd like to do another poll with our audience. So if you're getting in here and would like to add your insight into this, we're going to launch our next poll. What challenges have you faced with drones? And we've talked a little bit about that before this, but we'd love to hear what you faced. What challenges have you faced when integrating drones into your workflow? We've got regulatory hurdles, lack of skilled operators, data processing limitations, or you've not experienced any challenges so far, either because you've had no challenges or maybe you're not incorporating drones yet into your workflow. We'll give everyone a few seconds for that. And as everyone's polling into the poll there, again, remember, if you do have questions throughout the process, anything you'd like to ask our panelists, please feel free to add that into the chat window or the Q&A box. I'll be monitoring that throughout as well. So let's check in on our poll. Chaz, what are the latest on that?
Yeah, I also wanted to mention it's anonymous, so we can't see who's submitting the results. But so far, we have 33% saying regulatory hurdles, 22% saying data processing limitations, and then 44% no challenges so far.
Very good, very good. So welcome to all of those who are starting to get a sense of how this process works and what's going to unfold. So as we move into this poll, I'm going to drop down now and I want to jump into this, and I want to start, John, with you. When you think about smart targets, when combining with smart targets, how do drones enhance the overall, basically, data collection process in heavy civil projects? I mean, what specific advantages have you noticed when using the combination of the smart targets and the drones?
I mean, first, so I'm sorry, I guess to go a little farther back, you've got to have ground control points in your aerial data in order to tie in that map or 3D model or topography, whatever you're doing. And you have to get it somehow. It's an exact point on Earth, X, Y, and Z, latitude, longitude, and height. It's traditionally been collected by a surveyor, but now even people like me, just people who want to fly drones, can also set ground control points and have our data be as accurate as possible. And again, my experience has been with, N-trip enabled GNSS receivers. There's a lot of training involved, and you need to have a cell phone signal or else you're not going to, you can stand there all day trying to get a fix. With the smart targets, there's little to no training involved. It's basically turn them on, set them down in the area you want. It can be repeatable over and over again. But once you have that target, recorded, it's there if you want to do flights over and over again. But again, the targets come back to the office, it gets processed, or it could be processed right there on site if that's what the operator wants to do. and it's survey grade. Right. So we are, I think we're looking at centimeter, 2 centimeters kind of thing. So that's the kind of data now that is actionable. That's the kind of data now that you can use to measure for, for grading, for, buying equipment, for buying, pipe, conduit, whatever you're looking to buy. You don't have to guess anymore. Did I buy too much or too little? So that's what I appreciate about the smart targets.
Excellent. And for you, Larry, how do you see the role of those smart targets, evolving as construction projects become more complex and require even higher level of precisions? What are you seeing in the industry regarding that?
Well, so go back to one of the comments that was covered a while ago about safety. We're putting less people in the field in a position where they can be hurt. The targets essentially can be placed to the edge of any construction areas, or if you're doing say utility line surveys where they got to get in there, you can put them off to the side of the surveys, not necessarily impact anything, and yet collect very accurate data very quickly. The other part of that is that you're getting it at a low cost. If you put your drone in the air and fly it, but you just put panels down, then you got to wait for a surveyor. You got to pay $3,500, $4,500 a day to get a surveyor to go out, locate that site, and it may be 6 weeks before he gets there. With a smart target on the ground, you collect while you fly and you leave the site with the data you need. So there's return on investment in terms of the speed and the cost there. The other thing, though, and I think this is really important, we kind of alluded to it a few minutes ago, is you need to understand what your deliverable is. Why do you need to be as accurate as you need to be? And sometimes, there's some tools you can use to get some jobs done, and other tools wouldn't work. So I think it's important to understand what your deliverable has to be. If you know what the customer's requirements are, you're better able to control the environment. For instance, do I fly at a higher altitude to collect the data faster, or do I need to get a very small ground sample distance? Those are important factors to consider as well.
Dallas, what are you seeing and the importance of smart targets in your work? Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, so smart targets, ground control points are very important in construction, especially when you're trying to compare design files in our software to the current conditions. And without ground control, the data is not accurate. Therefore, you can't compare your design file versus what the project looks like on that particular drone flight. So very important for accuracy. Without it, your data is almost not useful. So especially for geospatial, make sure the project's at the right location.
As we talk about this smart targets, we talk about the process of this experience, and recognizing that a good portion of our audience has not actually even utilized drones yet. I would love to start with you, John, on this, and then Larry and Dallas. I would love for each of you to give us just a high-level overview of how one would get started in this, and ultimately why they would choose this. What's the benefit? If their brains aren't quite getting around, why drones, why now? Let's start with you, John, on how to get started.
I mean, it's going to be up to every individual company. We've seen them, everybody does it a little bit differently, or an integration in different ways. But if it is you and you're deciding to start something internally and flying yourself, I would say first, and you're not at all familiar with aviation, that's a great place to start. The FAA website is going to give you all the information about regulations, where you can fly legally and not legally, and just start YouTubing as much as possible. You're going to have to pass a FAA test. And this is even really before you get into, as Dallas said, doing the research on exactly what you need to fulfill your duties. You're going to be paying, anywhere from $3,000 to $4,000 for something very basic. We use our drones and cameras are, you know, going to be more around $30,000, and that's just because we're using, you know, double redundancy in batteries and all flight systems. Everything is double because we're flying over, you know, infrastructure. A lot of times we're flying over utilities, so all that's really important. And then of course the camera we're using allows us to fly a little bit faster and a little bit higher and get that same kind of data. So that's a consideration as well. And then again, who's going to be doing the flights? Are you doing, you know, once a week? You know, and again, all of aviation is, you know, hours and hours of boredom accentuated by seconds of pure panic, and flying drones is no exception. And things like, you know, your public outreach. How are you talking to the people around the site who may not understand what you're doing there with a drone? You know, part of our training for our pilots is deconfliction, being able to talk to somebody who, you know, needs to know why the heck you're flying over their house or what they think is over their house. So doing the research, I guess, is the first step, and then deciding whether or not you're going to go internal or look for an established drone service provider.
Excellent. Larry, your thoughts?
You know, when you first asked the question about why drones, I thought, well, okay, somebody with a hobby to fly or somebody with a hobby for cameras. But, you know, John's right. You got to know the FAA. You've really got to understand the regs right there, because it can get you in a heap of trouble. Go do a quick search on the internet about, you know, somebody flying a drone and not having permission, and you'll hear horror stories out there about that. Even for people doing legitimate survey work where they weren't licensed to do work in certain areas or they weren't in the right airspace. So safety, legal safety. The question about why drones, we've already covered. It's so much faster to collect very accurate data. We've got some customers who are in the engineering business. They do transportation design, and they wanted to be able to get fast, accurate surveys of corridors that they were going to be working on. And drones are just the best tool in the toolbox to do that. And I use that phrase carefully because they are tools. Just like every other tool you would use in your profession, they are tools, and you need to pick the tool that works best for you. John referenced a $30,000, $35,000 drone. If it's how you make your money, you need to spend the money to get the right tool. So that's an important consideration. I would offer that a smart target in that toolbox is a good tool to have to get accurate geospatial data right out of the box. The other question you asked, though, was why now? And that's a great, great question for today. We've got so many tools available to us, from, you know, the drone that you would select, to the software that you would use to process, to the customer that you're working with. You're going to be able to drive their product all the way through because you're providing the base maps, you're providing the site survey, you're providing the progress monitoring. And it's such a dynamic time today to be in this industry. It's really great.
Dallas, what do you say to folks who are wanting to get their foot into this, and what are the first steps you recommend?
I would just say take your time. And honestly, I would recommend hiring some drone service provider to collect data, get your hands on that data and see, you know, how can you use it in your day-to-day workflow now. I think some people get afraid that they're too late. I think this industry is still very new. So yeah, I would say just get started, take your time, know that you're not going to be able to, you know, do it overnight and you might choose the wrong drone to start, and you might have to, you know, trial and error is really what it's going to take. But yeah, if you have good resources, people that are in the industry, friends, and I would always just hire a good reputable company to help you with that.
As we move on to the next section of our conversation, we want to talk about data-driven decision-making and why that's valuable and important. But we also have another poll question for our audience. So let's move to the next poll, and we'll find out how your insights are in this area. Which aspects of construction benefit most from this technology, from drone data? Pre-construction planning, progress tracking, inspections and safety audits, or post-construction analysis? For you that are utilizing drones, which aspects of your construction process benefit the most from the drone data?
All
Chaz
right,
will
we're
give
getting
us-
those responses in. Yep. And so far, the two biggest ones look like pre-construction planning and progress tracking. We're at about progress tracking, we're at 63%. And then pre-construction planning, we're at 38%.
Excellent. So based on that data that's come in, Larry, I would love to get your take on, and what's the final answer on that? Which was the highest, Chaz, just in the final hour there?
It was progress tracking.
Progress tracking. What can you share, Larry, with us about the importance of progress tracking when it comes to the data-driven decision-making?
So Troy, I've got the gray hair to show it. I've worked in the industry long before drones were here. I remember standing in the road collecting tickets from trucks when they were delivering material on site for road construction, whether it was gravel to put down for the roadbed or the asphalt that was delivered. The ability to track what progress is taking place on the site today, in this digital world with project managers who want to know everything today. At the end of the day, they want to be able to report a 19.37% status on a project. Wow, that's a lot of information to track. Drones let you get out there and track it quickly. You can see stockpile materials, whether it's at the mine site before it gets removed, or as it's removed, or if it's on the site as it's been dumped. We can track quickly, and we've already talked about safely. And I think accurate is a very good assessment. So, we're in a data world, everything in the cloud now, and I think this is a great tool to use, the drone as a tool for helping track project progress in construction.
John, I would love to know from you, can you give us an example of a project that you've worked on where the kind of data you've gathered, the importance of it, and how it made a difference for the company that you were working for?
I could just go back to even simple pictures like this. We heard basically, every week we go on, usually on Sundays, because that's when, everybody's not working and we can fly over there and kind of have the place to ourselves. But, we do north, south, east, and west. And, these pictures started becoming the basis of the all hands meeting when all the subs were together talking about, what they are, going to be doing next week. You can see that the material for the plumber isn't here yet. It's not, it would be right here in this, lay down yard if it were. That way they can start, pre-planning what they're doing in their schedule next week much better. So, in the time that we can fly, this and take these kind of, oblique pictures, we can also do, a 3D scan. The pictures go into, the images and the data go into a software like Datumate, and then it's shared throughout the company. I mean, everyone has access to the exact same imagery. So that's, once a week progress monitoring with, the new quote unquote drone in a box on site, drone services. You could do it every day at 5 o'clock if you wanted to, and have, again, the exact state of that construction site. We do a lot of looking for dams around storm drains, right? That's I think $60,000 fine if you did, if something goes down the storm drain. And a lot of our time is just looking for making sure that everything is properly covered, so we don't, that's a huge money savings right there.
Absolutely. I can see the simple things that can add up quickly. If you're having to send a manual experience out to that, where the technology can capture that and save you time and money across the board. Dallas, as you think about data from a data perspective, what are the most important metrics that drones can help capture in roadway and heavy civil projects? And why are those metrics and how do you manage those metric projects within projects? So again, what is the metrics, the best metrics that you can get for what you do, and how do these metrics impact the project management?
Yeah, so most of these projects, they get paid like on unit pricing. So, tons of gravel hauled in, maybe lineal feet of pipe installed or cubic yards hauled out. So that's probably why the number one poll question was progress tracking. So to be able to have analytics to track that progress, whether it's a big cut. So if they're, cutting material, how close are they? How much more material do they have to haul in to get up to grade? So getting those analytics of a cut fill map of your site in essentially almost real time the same day is very valuable, because it can show them, are they on schedule, behind schedule? Did they bring in too much material? Did they not cut too much? So they can catch those things a lot quicker, which I think really helps eliminate rework and mistakes.
Larry, as you think about Interra's emphasis on advanced geospatial solutions, how do you ensure that the data being collected is actionable and leads to tangible improvement in project outcomes?
Wow. Actionable. Well, the first thing you want to make sure is you're in the right place. That's what we help you do. We get your project in the right place. But the other thing is, are you set up to collect the data properly? If you've got 150 acre site and you've got 2 ground control points, you're not going to get very accurate with that. You're going to need to plan that. And what kind of terrain relief do you have on that? If you've got highs and lows, you need to have more control on the site. You may need to bring your drone down and fly at a lower level. What kind of material are you flying over? If it's woodland, a photogrammetric drone's not going to do a very good job over woodland. You might need LiDAR. And in that case, you're going to be changing all of the collection process to go through a different system. If it's open land, the image again behind John, for instance, if it's open land, you can collect with a lot of data fairly quickly and then do tracking against that. Now the question is, every time you collect it, are the datums the same? So are we in the same place every time we fly it? Not the drone in the same place, is the model in the same place? I think if you're planning your projects, you want to look at considerations like, where am I going to fly? What am I looking at? What have I got to collect with it? And then what am I going to tie it to? That's a part of that research that we discussed earlier. Figure out what you've got to have to be able to get those things done. And I think maybe it was Dallas mentioned a while ago, get a consultant, have a consultant come in and help you pick those pieces. So if you're going to go forward as either a career path or part of your business in that direction, it pays to bring somebody in who's done it.
As a follow-up to that, Larry, I'm curious to know, can you give us an example of a situation or a client that you worked with in the heavy civil space that the data points that they came back with just transformed the way they do their work?
Yeah, so we have a customer in Florida who was working on a project in Pennsylvania, and it was an ongoing construction project, but they did the base survey on the outset. Now there's a product, our product, that does the planning for them, and most software has some kind of a planning tool in it. But we set it up so the customer can do an output KML. They sent it to their customer, and they approved it. Said, great, go. They go fly the very first site. They send the data back up there, and the customer calls them. You didn't collect everything. You missed like 20 acres over here in the southeast. Well, there was a little bit of back and forth in it, and then the customer says, hey, wait a minute. We sent you this to approve. And he said, yeah, you're right. I saw it. I just didn't pay attention. But, it's kind of like the paradigm of how do you put together a group: storming, norming, forming, and performing. These guys hit that little storming stage early in their project, and they were able to correct and then go forward from there. So every time they did progress monitoring after that, there was a lot of mutual respect about, we understand you're providing good data because you were clear from the outset, this is what you're going to do every step of the way. So it was a good relationship based on how they got started and clear understanding of the deliverables.
Excellent. John, we've referenced how this technology can be used, but again, for those individuals on this webinar today who might not fully understand, they might just think you put a drone up in the sky to take a picture or to make video. Can you give us a sense of all the different technology capabilities? I know LiDAR was referenced. There are lots of different ways. What is the scope and range of data that can be collected from drones? Oh, muted.
Sorry about that. Yeah, again, the drone is, as we've said several times, it's just a tool. I think of it as an aerial platform that, pretty much anything can be mounted on. We specialize in RGB, red, green, blue data, of course, and of course, LiDAR, but, some other data that can be collected is infrared. So, looking at heat, I think it's really underutilized, especially looking for leaks in new construction or, doing environmental, inspections. We do multispectral, which is more plant health and that kind of thing. But, as you're doing roadway construction, the health of the environment around the roadway might be important, as well as vegetation encroachment, all that good stuff. Sorry, there was one more, but it escapes me right now.
That's fine. That's fine. One question for you, Dallas, is do you find as well that some of the key data points that you bring in through and process through Datumate, what are the important ones for you and the software you utilize? Oh, there he is. Did you catch that question, Dallas?
Ground penetrating radar, by the way. Sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yes, there we are.
No, I did not hear the question.
Okay, let me pose the question again. My question for you is what are the data points that you bring into Datumate that make your software integrate and provide a solution for clients?
So first we could take the raw imagery and we process it. So it's a photogrammetry software. We can import the GCPs, which is good for accuracy. So we've talked about that. And then, so with the GCPs, with the raw imagery, we can make that 3D model, the 2D model, and it's web-based. So you can interact with it. You can share it with stakeholders. You can do annotations and all that type of stuff. So, with our platform, it's just really being transparent with client and the stakeholders and everyone involved in the project to collaborate.
As we shift into the next section of our conversation, I want to take a look at the future outlooks as it comes to drone technology as well. And we have one final poll for our audience here, but I'm going to pull up this next section. We're going to talk about the future outlook, and we're going to jump into our next poll. So the question that we have is, what method are you using to collect data? What methods are you using to collect accurate drone data? We've got RTK, PPK, we got arrow points, we got survey GCPs, and we have others. And as we gather that collection again and again, for some of you, you may have not collected data points yet, so this is all new information. But Chaz, when you're ready, share us with the latest insight.
Okay, we're still getting some people putting in their answers, so definitely appreciate everybody's response. I think there are a few more trickling in. And so right now, kind of where we're sitting is about 29%. It's RTK and PPK. 43% survey GCPs, and then others is coming in at 29%.
Excellent. So for our panelists in this conversation, any insights that come away from that information from our attendees? Anything that you want to comment on about those data points that people are collecting?
I think it's interesting that survey GCPs had such a high number. Still people are doing a traditional method, and that's you're using new technology drones and using older technology to survey. Interesting.
Although I will add, obviously, if you're looking to get a certified California or any, land surveyor, report, obviously that's going to have to be done by a licensed surveyor.
That is true.
But
Yeah.
what we do a lot of times is, set our own ground control points. And then, as I said, at 6 weeks later, whenever they have time in their schedule, they can come back and double check them on their own times. And our flight doesn't have to be delayed. So
Before we jump into the future aspects of what's coming in this technology, I do want to talk about something that's been alluded to here, which is collaboration. How you're working with different agencies, how you're working with different platforms, different hardwares and softwares. I would love to know first from you, Dallas, how do you see collaboration an important part of this emerging technology?
I think it's really important because sometimes you get hardware companies that also sell software, so they kind of try to like close the loop where you have to use their software. So I think integration's good. I think it'll help, keep the industry pushing forward and progressing. So yeah, I always like to see hardware companies that work with other sensor providers, and they're like an open system where it doesn't matter what software platform you're processing with. So I think integration and partnerships are really important. And there's some, and it's good to see that a lot of them are doing that, where they're not closed looping, where you can actually they're working with other companies.
And Larry, what are you seeing in this realm of collaboration?
I completely agree with what Dallas said. That was one of the design considerations when we built our product. As a matter of fact, is we wanted it to be open. We didn't care what platform you were flying, what sensor you were flying. We'll work with photogrammetric, we'll work with LiDAR, and we didn't care where your data is going to be processed. We were going to provide it to you in a CSV format. So if you're going to be working with customers providing a solution today, you need to be able to collaborate with as many different vendors as possible. And it needs to be something that the end user doesn't have to go figure out, how do I get to this format, translate it into something else so that I can hand it off. It needs to be seamless. So I completely agree with Dallas there.
And John, your take on the importance of collaboration in this process?
Yeah, I'm just a pilot. I like to fly airplanes and drones. And in order to do that, I need to give the best possible product to my customers, or else, there's no reason to fly. So, finding companies that are truly innovative and are doing what they're saying and can back it up, like Intera, like Datumate. That's where I find the real value, and again, able to do something that other drone service providers or other pilots can't do without that, partnership. And yeah, going forward into the future, it's going to be harder and harder to, kind of do it all, and really leaning on these partnerships is the only way it's going to get us through, right?
When we talk about the future of hardware, the future of software, one of the questions that is surfacing, and maybe it's because it's more in the press these days than anything else, is the evolution of the drone technology. Which drones can you buy? Which drones can't you buy in the United States? So I'm curious, John, is there anything that companies should be aware of anything that might be shifting in the next year or two as it relates to running out to Best Buy to buy a drone? They should avoid a certain drone or not a drone? Not that you're making recommendations, but are there things on the horizon they need to be aware of?
Yeah. I mean, there's more. The regulations are constantly changing, and that's within the FAA. That's, even within the last 3 or 4 years, we've had huge, changes in being able to fly over people, being able to fly at night, things like that. So, having the awareness is constantly changing. The other side of that is, utilizing quote unquote foreign adversary made, drones, which are, the big one is DJI. There's a lot of laws, and obviously you can do your own research, but we invest in both Ford adversary made drones, as well as USA made NDAA compliant drones when we need to fly. So say on a military air base, we got to fly an NDAA compliant drone. It took about a year to get it just even approved to be able to fly. We fly up at Camp Pendleton quite a bit. Places like Jet Propulsion Laboratory, anything that's in DOJ, DOE, DOD is going to need to have, a specific drone. But pretty much for everything else, the safety, the price, all kind of points to, the Chinese made drones. But again, you just have to do your own research. And of course, we would love to help anybody make that decision if you're looking for, the right aircraft. We fly a fleet of drones because we fly the right aircraft for the job, what we're doing. But it's you really do have to be constantly kind of following the legislation that's currently coming out.
Larry, what are you seeing in the terms of the future for this industry, particularly as it pertains to things like AI, and how is that going to be incorporated into the work that you do?
John, having been in the industry for a while, I've seen things like BIM come in where they're talking about being able to model a structure before they build it. And they have all the way down to the switches on the wall and who the manufacturer is so they can order things. And of course, just-in-time delivery, where stuff is delivered to the site on time, which is helping keep projects on budget, on schedule, because they're finding problems in the digital world and resolving it. We're starting to see that happen today. I've been on sites where we see dozers that have GPS units running on them to control where the dozer is positioned. But now they're putting the model, the 3D model, onto the dozer so that not just it knows where it is, it knows now where it needs to go, either how much it needs to cut or how much it needs to bring into the site. So when you're looking at modeling a site and you can control the construction of that site with digital equipment, now we're looking at AI going into the field and being able to help the contractor know what materials are going to be placed in certain areas, how to stage things, how to carry a project from beginning to end in sequencing, instead of having to have somebody draw up a set of plans to do construction sequencing and signage. It makes the whole process faster. It makes his deliverable faster, and it makes for a better project in the long run. We're seeing people be able to do things much faster, obviously safer, which is very important, but because they're able to make decisions with equipment that is designed to make the project go.
And Dallas, how about you? From your vantage point, what are you seeing about how AI is impacting your software and the future of that software?
Yeah, so AI is it's great. If you can train models how to identify equipment, material, kind of like Larry said. So identify changing grades and roads, maybe even the conditions of the roads, like is it cracked? Does it need to be replaced? Is it failed areas? Stuff like that. So yeah, AI is great. I do want to add a little bit on the technology side. Like my dad has a robot lawnmower that mows its own yard. So I wouldn't surprise me if we have excavators out there digging their own utility trenches on their own someday. So machine controlled equipment has been around for a fair amount of time now, and majority of contractors are now using it. It's just, it's great to see where it's going. And yeah, it's exciting.
John, I have a further question for you as it relates to AI and the evolution of drones in general. 5 years ago when these drones were there, were you manually on a joystick flying them and trying to make this work? And is the technology now where you can put points on a map and it'll fly there and accomplish those things?
Well, yeah, I mean, the short answer is we've had that for the last 5 years. I mean, going back to 2019, a second generation of a very popular aircraft was released. And I would argue that we've had, what is artificial intelligence? I think it's the ability of the device to make a decision based on real-time input, right? So, since 2019, we've had drones that you can't fly into the side of a building. You can't crash it because it will take over, make a decision. No, I'm not going to crash it. I see that there's something in front of me. And, therefore, where does that go? Does the bulldozer make a decision of, well, this is what the plan is supposed to be. I see the hillside. I am now going to, shape the hillside of what the plan has to be, unless it sees, oh, we're actually digging into something I didn't expect. I think that's where the true, well, that's where we're going. But with working with utilities, we've been experimenting for about 2 years with not only AI being able to identify broken transformer or some sort of piece of equipment that needs to be repaired, but we've been kind of researching how do we take the pilot out of the drone inspection, right? How do you launch the drone sees, oh, there's a utility pole. I need to, how am I going to figure out how to take correct pictures of this, right? To model it, what have you. So, we've been working on that in the last 2 years, but, the AI is just making, us able to produce kind of the all of the 90% of my job is planning and then processing, right? The flight part is only 10%, but AI is creating ways for me to be able to take care of that planning much quicker, produce the documents I need to present to the FAA or the military base or what have you, to be able to gain access to the base. And it's just kind of streamlining all of our other and giving me more time to fly, to be honest with you. So that's my short answer right now.
Excellent. Well, as we get to almost to the top of the hour here, we want to open it up yet again for any other questions that anybody has. If anybody's got a burning question they'd like to ask the panelists, please drop it into the chat window, and I'll be tracking that as we get to the top of the hour. But the last question that I would like to pose to each of you as we get to the end of our time here is, what excites you about the future of this industry? And I'll start first with you, Larry. What excites you about the next? And I'll kind of keep it in a zone, because obviously there's a lot to be excited about, and technology moves fast. But in the next year, what excites you about this technology?
So we asked a question a few minutes ago about just where are things headed in general, and the comment was made. I want to go back. There's an old adage: follow the money. If we're looking at what's going on with NDAA compliant, with Blue UAS, look at where the money is coming from to fund those projects. When the federal government is sending money to the states, and the states is sending it either to the DOT or to the county or to some agency, and that money is then getting used. Look at where that trail of money is going. It's going to drive the legislation. That's going to drive your decision making. So we're getting smarter as consumers of equipment to buy the things that we can use on projects going forward. And I think that, just the proliferation of new opportunities to use drones in various areas like inspection, the AI tools that are being used for crack inspection on pavement, for instance, or on structures, or the tools that are being used to do quantity takeoff on a project site as it changes from one week to the next. That's going to be driven by the tools that we're buying.
Excellent. Dallas, what excites you about what's next in the future of this industry?
I really like the hardware. I think the hardware is going to drive the software. So I think these drones are going to start to fly longer. So I think the regulations will make it so pretty much everyone can fly beyond visual line of sight. Honestly, the hardware is already reliable, like really reliable. You hardly hear a story of, a drone just falling out of the sky. Most of the time it's just pilot error. So Yeah, I'm really excited to see like where the hardware goes with longer flight time, flying higher, faster. You can cover larger areas. So that's what I'm excited about. I'm also excited with construction, taking the drone data and with the 3D modeling and being able to bring in like IFC drawings, so like into BIM modeling and seeing like more granular detail. I think that's gonna uh, get a lot better. Yeah, so that's what I'm excited about.
And how about for you, John? What excites you about either the hardware technology or life as a pilot in the next year?
Yeah, yeah, I love, I love the aircraft. I love, getting a new one and learning all the new buttons and things like that. But I guess what I really am most excited about is just the continuation of safety and efficiency that, they provide. I mean, if you look at the utilities, they've been one of the first, industries to really take on in a large way UAS inspections. And the fact that, we've all but mitigated wildfire in, California. I mean, it's a terrible thing to say right now, though, but utility cause wildfire used to be a terrible, terrible problem. But, by using this new technology, they've all but mitigated it. And we were a big part of that. So I think we are, and the other thing I'm excited about is that most companies now have some sort of, aerial imagery program insight. So, we don't have to convince them that you should try to, take a picture with drones and see what that, they're already kind of addicted to the data. So, I'm excited for everybody to kind of take that next step forward and go from, marketing imagery like this to real actionable data like what we're talking about today. So.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate so much all of your insight in this conversation. As we get to the top of the hour, we want to thank you all for being on our panels today. So John and Larry and Dallas, thank you so much for your insight and for your wisdom in this experience. Thank you all for the participants as well for being a part of our polling process. We hope you found this webinar to be valuable and that it helps set the stage and lead you in the right direction for the next steps on what is an exciting part of the heavy civil industry. So with that, we conclude our webinar today, and thank you so much for attending. Have a wonderful afternoon. Goodbye, everyone.
Take care.
Well, I'm going to assume that we are good. My guess, if I'm not hearing from Chaz, is I hope power's still good for her in Tampa.
Yeah,
There we go.
I'm still here.
Excellent.
So, let's see here. Bear with me for just a moment.
Yeah.
So some of the people were still hanging on, so I just removed them from the webinar.
I saw that too.
Yeah, so